No move at the deadline for the Texans. Well, I guess one small move. Khalil Davis for a 7th-round pick in 2026. Did the Texans make a mistake? It is S&L, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you on the morning simulcast. Did the Texans make a mistake not making a move, Cody?
I believe they did. And you look at the way that the rest of the AFC's top of the standings acted, and just the way that Nick Caserio talked about the trade deadline to me was really off-putting. He acted like it was much ado about nothing. I think those were his exact words about the trade deadline. And I know D'Amico Ryans on Monday said, "Hey, we're always looking to improve our team and add to the team." It's like it's kind of a crazy part to say it's a much ado about nothing when Brett Veach, who's got rings clanging on his finger, is over here making constant moves and up to the deadline was still trying to improve the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. Like, teams and players and coaches that have been to the AFC Championship game or have been around organizations that have won Super Bowls, they didn't feel like it was much ado about nothing. Omar Khan and Eric DeCosta, who run the Steelers and the Ravens. Now, they haven't won the championships as the general manager, but they've been in those front offices. Like, they didn't act like it was much ado about nothing. So I just don't love the laissez-faire, it's not really a big deal approach to the trade deadline. And I understand you don't just make a move to make a move, but you can't tell me somebody out there wasn't an upgrade over what you've got on this roster already in a couple of different spots.
Well, my pushback would be, well, those teams didn't do it in the offseason. Like it's not like the Texans had a quiet offseason and then they just didn't make a move. Like the Chiefs really needed a wide receiver this offseason. They didn't do it. Buffalo needed a receiver this offseason. They didn't do it. The Jets just did it just because. So the notion that the Texans just kind of sat on their feet, I think is kind of weird. Like they did trade for Stephon Diggs. He got hurt. And look, I'm not sitting here. I wouldn't have criticized him too much if it happened, but I think it's unfair. I think there's a lot of criticism that can go the Texans front office way in a number of ways. Like you could have used Noah Brown on this roster. You could have used Cam Akers on this roster. I call it the Brown Akers philosophy when it comes to the moves. And I think that is fair criticism. I think the way in which they've evaluated the offensive line is fair criticism, but I just don't understand this. Well, they didn't go make a move, and Baltimore made a move, and Kansas City made a move, and the Jets made a move, and yeah, but the Texans were very active in the offseason. It just didn't go their way because Stephon Diggs got hurt.
Yeah, well, when, Kansas City had a guy get hurt, they went and added to the wide receiver room. Like Rashee Rice has been gone for a few weeks. They went and added. And I'm not saying the Texans should have got DeAndre Hopkins, and when the Chiefs made that trade, Diggs was still hurt. But you can't tell me there wasn't a veteran out there that couldn't have rounded out this wide receiver room.
Rashee Rice is basically like if they had run it back with Nico and Tank, and then Tank had gotten hurt, I think they would have made a move. But the Texans, the Chiefs needed a wide receiver even when they had Rashee Rice. They'd already made the move for Stephon Diggs. So I don't see how that's the same either. It just seems like people wanted to trade. I do know that you have like a specific name. You were saying Darius Slayton, but the trade talk for the Texans, for me, a lot of it sounded a lot like my pet peeve during the draft when people were saying, well, we needed an offensive lineman, we need an awesome cornerback, and there weren't specifics. I know you threw out the name Darius Slayton, you threw out the name Jacoby Myers.
I would have traded a fifth for Mike Williams.
Does Mike Williams fit in here?
Is Mike Williams better than Xavier Hutchinson?
I think we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
What do you need to be focusing on then?
We need to be focusing on the fact that they got rid of Noah Brown and they got rid of Cam Akers. Because if you told me that the Texans yesterday traded for Noah Brown, I think we would all welcome that. I think that would be a welcome trade. So it's not necessarily that they didn't trade for anyone in the market. It's that two guys, and this isn't hindsight. I know that there's like the lazy ass mentality from, a lot of times it's athletes and coaches where they want to say, well, hindsight's 2020 and, it's easy to look back. No, the Noah Brown decision was the most discussed, at times criticized move of the offseason of camp, where you got rid of a guy who, when called upon and when available, was a valuable piece for you. Would he have done much up to this point? No. But you could have used a Noah Brown. And furthermore, I think Noah Brown might have had the chemistry, like when plays broke down. And I think you can go look at this last year, like with CJ Stroud running for his life, Noah Brown could get open. And I don't know, like, I don't know that any other receiver on this team outside of maybe Nico Collins, I don't even know if he's doing it as good as Noah did, can get open like that. So for me, I'm all about criticizing this front office. I think you go back to the fact that you got rid of two guys that would have been welcome additions at the deadline as opposed to trading for what was on the market.
Yeah, well, I mean, you compounded the mistake by not doing something too. And I'm not saying like it's some tragic, unrecoverable from mistake, but if you felt, and I agree with you, I didn't love Noah Brown getting shown the door. Cam Akers traded for basically nothing, didn't make sense. But when those things have happened, we can see that it's caused an issue for the Texans. Why not try to go and fix it? Khalil Herbert went for a 7th. He's as good as Dameon Pierce is. Like, he went for a 7th. Mike Williams for a 5th. You couldn't pry a wide receiver. You're not getting Noah Brown, but you couldn't pry somebody that could maybe turn into a veteran that you trust away from somebody else. I just didn't love the trade deadline, didn't love the operation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are with you on that. I just go back to the Brown Akers philosophy. I think that was the mistake that the Texans made, was getting rid of Noah Brown and getting rid of Cam Akers. And that is not hindsight. That was stuff that was discussed from the jump. It is S&L, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. The other thing that I think I've noticed about this team, and seems like it's only on the defensive, on the offensive side of the ball. And I want to pick your brain on this, and shout out to everyone in the chat. There seems to be like coach's pet type of vibes when it comes to the offense. And I don't know that that's the case to the defense. I know D'Amico likes Jalen Petrie, but he at least like puts Jalen Petrie in place in positions to exceed, at least up to this point. But if you look at some of these guys and what we're talking about with the Noah Brown, Cam Akers thing, like they have these favorites that for whatever reason they're loyal to, no matter what their eyes tell them. And there's 3 guys on offense that I want to focus on when it comes to this.
Okay.
Number 1 is Kenyan Green. The guy didn't even have to compete for his starting spot, Cody. And whenever you saw him struggle, it was, hey, let's focus on the good stuff. Hey, Kenyan Green had a tough offseason. You guys have no idea how difficult last year was for him. I've heard Caserio say that on 610 with Sean and Seth. I mean, they didn't even like pretend that he was in some sort of competition. A guy who was hurt, a guy who didn't perform at a decent level, didn't even have to have some fake ass competition. He was LG1 from the jump. No Jared Patterson, no Juice Scruggs, like nothing. No Kendrick, nothing. Like CJ Stroud had to have a fake competition. Like for some reason, Kenyan Green, they lean towards Kenyan Green where he's one of the guys. John Mechie is a guy that they like no matter what. And there's a lot to like about John Mechie, but it feels like they also kind of lean towards John Mechie to where you're willing to get rid of a Noah Brown for Mechie to where no matter what, John Mechie's a great player. John Mechie's this, John Mechie's that. And every time we've seen him get the opportunity, it just hasn't looked as good. And then I think Dameon Pierce is another one. Dameon Pierce last year was an unplayable backup running back. And this year, it wasn't as bad as Kenyan Green. I won't say that, but it wasn't abundantly clear that that RB2 was just in good hands with Dameon Pierce because of one run in one game against the New England Patriots. But for whatever reason, they decided to get rid of Cam Akers. They decided to run it back for Dameon Pierce. There does feel like on the offensive side of the rock, they have these guys that they like. I don't know if it's because it's a first-round pick, it's a second-round pick, and they have a soft spot for these guys, or it was the best pick that Caserio made a couple of years ago. Like, I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, they seem to have these guys that they just really, really like, that are almost like a coach's pet vibe. They're favorites.
I mean, the thing with John Mechie is I felt like he ended up, by the end of camp, he found himself with a roster spot, and they put him in the back part of the depth chart to begin the season. He really has only gotten opportunities since other guys have gone off the depth chart for injury or failure to do their special teams job, like Steven Sims. The Green one's always been curious because you had options for left guard to challenge Kenyan Green. It's not like there weren't guys in camp that couldn't have pushed him. Jarrett Patterson would have been a great example, especially when they also handed the job to Juice Scruggs at center. He didn't compete for the center job. Like, there were only 2 spots that you could have conceivably had any sort of competition because of who the player was and the non-financial investment in them, and that was center and left guard, and there was no competition. They had the 5 guys on the offensive line, and they didn't have anybody rotating in with them with the first team or taking reps away from them on the first team, like you said with Kenyan Green. I have to imagine the Green one's just trying to justify they used a first-round pick on him. Like that.
Really?
That's
like we're still doing that. Like we're not just forgetting about that. Realizing
front offices are so weird about their guys, like and the guys that they drafted and they invested in, and those guys get more opportunities than other guys. We've seen it for decades in the NFL. We've seen it for decades. So I got to imagine that was that. And look, Kenyan Green had a offseason challenge and challenge accomplished because he showed up and he transformed his body. Now, did that make him a better football player? It doesn't seem like it did, but he accomplished his offseason goal of show up looking different, and then he did. It didn't make him a much better football player than what we had previously seen from his actions. With Mechie, look, they kept 6 wide receivers. There was a spot for him, but it shouldn't have been at the behest of Noah Brown being shown the door. Like the resume dictated that Noah Brown deserved an opportunity on this team, even if he wasn't healthy during a good portion of training camp. And then the Dameon Pierce one, I mean, they run Joe Mixon enough that I'm not super worried about it. But as soon as it becomes an issue like it was when Pierce wasn't even available to them as the backup, they bet on a guy that's not ever really been healthy as the backup running back, and that's not been good.
Yeah, and the thing about it is this, like maybe I'm just naive, but I just don't know how, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and I think you make good points, and I think the actions back up what you're saying, but it just like Nick Caserio, you missed on a first rounder, you missed on a second rounder. It's cool, dude. Like we've moved past that. Like even the best front offices are going to miss on first and second round picks when they're figuring stuff out. Like the Chiefs drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round. They're fine. Like you can move on from Kenyan Green at this point. I don't think it's going to be the worst thing possible. Like especially at this point in the season, and same thing with Mechie and Dameon Pierce. It's just interesting to look at, and it's also just kind of a helpless type of vibe, type of feel.
Yeah, look, they need other people to step up and be better than those guys. Kenyan Green's season's done, according to Ian Rappaport. They haven't made an official move with Green just yet, but his season's set to be done because of the injury. So they're going to have to figure out that left guard spot. They were forced into a change there. Mechie's probably not going to play as much with Nico Collins coming back. And then who knows when Dameon Pierce is going to be healthy. I mean, he's been of the 3 guys we're talking about, Pierce has actually been the most useful of those 3 guys because you haven't needed him when he's been healthy because Mixon's been healthy. They've been healthy at the same time. And when he has been contributing, it's been a couple of nice special teams plays. Like you haven't had to put him on the field as running back 1 because Joe Mixon's not there. It's like Pierce for like when he's been able to fill his role from a health standpoint. But health was one of the concerns about Dameon Pierce. He got hurt his rookie year. He got hurt last year. He was hurt coming into the season. He got hurt during the season last year, and then he's hurt again this year. Multiple misses.
Well, he's also your top kick returner. My thing is though, like you could have kept the depth piece around. It's a little bit bizarre, a little bit confusing, just the way that it's been handled. But who knows how they handle it? We'll figure it out. They got the Lions right now. The line is 3.5. It's not going too many places, but right now the line is 3.5 in this game. Something this kind of feels like something might be up, or the experts know something type of game for the Detroit Lions and the Texans. And we expect, I would think that Nico Collins, we're hours away from hearing that Nico Collins is back at practice. That's what I would expect. If that doesn't happen, then I think all bets are off and things will get really interesting. But we expect that is going to be the case shortly that Nico Collins will be back.
I would certainly hope so. I know they played a little coy on Monday. D'Amico Ryans did when he was asked about Nico Collins, and we'll continue to evaluate him throughout the week. And they didn't open his practice window like they did for other players on injured reserve. Now, he didn't have to open any practice window. I mean, they can just put him right out there. It's not a big deal that happened. So, your point about, hey, they want to maybe give Nico his moment in a return, or a couple of days where the Lions can't, or thinking maybe Nico's not going to play. Sure, coaches do that across the league and have done that for years. Like, I'm not telling you who's starting. Don't want the other team to know. It's like, I got a good idea that as soon as 12 is ready, you're putting 12 on the field, okay? And it feels like he's ready right now. There is the danger that, hey, Aaron Wilson said he's been ready for a couple weeks, so there's a little bit of danger there. But I do expect we see 12 on the practice field, and that's going to be a huge boost. He's going to help so many things on this team. The quick passing game is going to be better because of Nico Collins.
Because you can the offensive line.
What's that?
Which helps the offensive line.
Right.
I know whenever you say a receiver's coming back, there's a group of folks that'll be like, well, that's not the offensive line. That's all your problems.
Quick passing game, which helps the offensive line, allows Sroud to get rid of the ball, allows him to get into a rhythm too. Like, another thing that the offensive line destroys is you can't operate plays as they're called because you've got to adjust for pressure and things like that. If you can get a couple of nice, quick Nico Collins plays and a couple of nice, easy Nico Collins completions, you can keep the train on the tracks and keep the train on time, operate the offense. And he's the best scramble drill guy with CJ Stroud as well. He gets the most out of Stroud extending a play and being able to be found by the quarterback as he rolls out or avoids pressure. So that's a big boost there. And look, if you respect the passing attack just a little bit more, it's going to make things just a tiny bit easier for Joe Mixon, and he's been fantastic all year.
See, I'm not in the business of breaking injury news or anything like that, but I'll just be honest. Me personally, I would be surprised if Nico wasn't out there.
Agreed.
I'll just say that. Like, I think I would be surprised. I think we would have to kind of reset and reevaluate what things are, but the confidence-ish level in the Texans on Sunday, and a lot of it has to do with two things. Number one, I think that there's something going on with that betting line, and I just always feel like that's kind of a symbol a lot of times of potential chaos. And also, I think Nico Collins, he might not be able to block, but I think he provides this offense with a much-needed boost. And quite frankly, he's the best player on the team right now. I mean, he's played the best based on the standards. CJ's awesome. CJ's the straw that stirs the drink. CJ's the most important. But as far as when he's been on the field, it's him and Joe Mixon have performed at the highest level, I would say. Which brings me to this: like, can Nico be Mixon? And by that I mean I think Joe Mixon does a really good job for the run blocking, in that I think I don't think the run blocking by this Texans offensive line, while I think it's better than the pass blocking, I don't think it's like great. I think Joe Mixon makes it look a hell of a lot better than it actually is. I wonder if Nico Collins kind of adds that element to the pass blocking, to where all of a sudden you're kind of keeping the defense on their toes. There's more effectiveness, more stuff opens up because of Nico Collins. So I wonder if he can kind of bring the boost and the juice and the contagious energy that D'Amico Ryans speaks of to the pass blocking game. I do wonder about that, if maybe this is going to be kind of like a Mixon-like kick from Nico.
Well, you remember there was a stretch there at the beginning of the season. I believe it was the first 4, maybe 5 weeks, something like that. They were the top passing offense in football by yardage. And, we were all looking around thinking, hey, there's still a little bit more to this. That was in large part because of Nico Collins. And even with the struggles that they've had throwing the football and protecting CJ Stroud, and they had that putrid Green Bay performance, stuck in there, they're still in the top half of the league in passing. So, and that's largely because of the results of what Nico Collins was able to accomplish early on in the season. So you plop that back in there, this passing attack is going to improve. It's going to be better. They're going to be able to put more yards, in the box score and set themselves up for an opportunity to score more points. You know, D'Amico Ryans talked about it the other day. Like, they move the ball in the second half, they can't finish and put points on the board. They desperately have got to get better in the second half. They're just one of the worst second half teams in football right now. Collins is going to help that a lot. It's like, can he be the passing game Joe Mixon where he kind of drags them to success? Yeah, we actually watched him do it the first couple of weeks.
And we also got to look at the offensive line and what are they going to do there? Are they going to roll with Kendrick Green? Is Jared Patterson going to be the left guard? Like, what are they going to do? Because Kendrick Green kind of held his own against the Jets. I didn't think it was. I mean, it's not great. Like, you're not going to. Let me put it this way: like, whether you're watching Kendrick Green or whether you're watching Jared Patterson, there's a chance there's going to be at least a few, hopefully fewer than more plays where, like, what the hell was that? Who the hell was he blocking there? Like, that's the life of having a backup guard. Especially on a team that has a questionable offensive line. But I thought Kendrick Green held his own, and we saw Jared Patterson on the one drive. I do wonder what they do at offensive line and what change they make and who they decide to go with. I think that'll be interesting to check out too.
I have to imagine it's Patterson as soon as he clears concussion protocol.
I think so too.
Because that's who they decided to put in the game when they benched Kenyan Green. Like, that was their first choice. And I don't know that, 2.5 quarters of football from Kendrick Green would have flipped that or changed that for them.
My only thing would be, and my only wonder would be, now that they know that Green is out, does Kendrick Green get more reps, which means that they're more comfortable putting him in there? And you also have to think about that Jared Patterson's also your backup center. So I don't know what the hell they're doing on this offensive line. I can't predict what they're going to do on this offensive line. Yes, is as good as mine. But I get what you're saying.
Whoever's not the left guard is the backup center too.
Right.
So because Kendrick Green can play center as well. I would think it's Patterson. I am the only reason I would think it could or would be Kendrick Green is if they felt like they were close to making a center change as well.
Which how come that's not discussed more? Like, it does seem like there's a lot of talk about the stuff around, and the Juice Scruggs play doesn't really get as broken down. And we don't pretend to be film gurus. It just doesn't seem like he's playing that well.
Well, my comment, and I heard Seth make this comment the other day as well. I want to see Juice Scruggs play next to a consistent left guard and see if that makes him a better football player.
Yeah.
Like how much of his issue at center is because the guys, Shaq Mason's playing the worst football of his career right now. How much of Juice's issues are the two guys next to him? And I wonder if that's why there hasn't been any sort of, nobody's been practicing snaps on the sideline thinking they're going to get in instead of Juice. So I wonder if that's part of the Juice issue is the guards and him having to try to make up for them or make them right or something of that nature.
Yeah, it is probably pretty hard to play center when
he's also 9 games into his career as a center in the NFL because he played exclusively left guard last year.
I don't play that.
It doesn't matter that he hadn't played the position before.
Jared Patterson did fine last year, and he was a 6th-round pick. Like, it's not. I don't look at this like he's.
Patterson looked bad in the replacement of Scruggs at center this year.
Yeah, he wasn't that good, but he did a better job pass blocking than Scruggs has this year. I don't look at Juice Scruggs and say inexperience is the issue right now. The offensive line's just got to get better. I think we all know that. It is S&L, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Texans will return to the practice field today. We'll hear from D'Amico Ryans today. We'll hear from Bobby Slowick tomorrow, and we should get a pretty good glimpse of whether or not Nico Collins is going to be back. The Khalil Davis trade. What did you make of the decision to get rid of Khalil Davis? Is that just like nothing to see here? I mean, no one's. It's not worth a whole video. But they did trade a depth defensive lineman for a late draft pick 2 years from now.
Yeah, about as late of a draft pick as you can get. It feels like Khalil Davis was always just right on the outskirts of what they wanted to do at defensive tackle, and they had a lot more invested in Fatukasi and Edwards and Tim Settle, and the consistency in the top end play from those guys has been more than Khalil Davis. And once they kept Kurt Hinish, and Kurt Hinish came back from his injury, somebody was not going to keep their job at defensive tackle. Like I didn't believe they were going to continue to keep 5 defensive tackles once Mario Edwards returned. You know, a 7th round pick a couple years from now, is that the best you can get for Khalil Davis? I guess. They have plenty at defensive tackle, so it's not like this is some, huge loss. Though Davis has had a couple of nice moments. There was he killed a whole Bills drive in the red zone by himself on back-to-back plays. So, I mean,
is Kurt Hinish better than Khalil Davis?
I don't believe he is.
Yeah, that's what I'm not going to quite look. I'll question Nick's offensive line. I won't question D'Amico when it comes to knowing his defensive lineman. So I get it. This is just me. I didn't know that Khalil Davis was better than Kurt Hinish. That's my thing. And I don't know how Jerry Hughes fits into this thing. That's really what's confusing to me, is I don't know how he fits into this thing. I know Mario Edwards is going to come back. Maybe they think Will Anderson's a little bit banged up and Jerry Hughes has to kind of, but are we sure Jerry Hughes is even going to play this week? I just don't know.
Hughes shouldn't get snaps ahead of any of the defensive ends.
I thought Jerry Hughes was done. Like I didn't know that they were going to designate a spot for Jerry Hughes. I had no idea.
They're going to have – now this is one of those like – I mean, they're going to bring back Jerry Hughes, but they didn't put Jimmy Ward on IR. Like,
well, they're running out of those designations. Like they're running out pretty quickly. I think they've used 5 of 8 if I saw correctly.
Okay, so Hinish got one. One day in the far future, Christian Harris will get one.
Yeah.
Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Who else did they use? Jeff Okudah.
Hughes.
And now Hughes. You didn't have to use Hughes, though.
And then I think there's one more, maybe. But yeah, they
got 6 defensive ends, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't know Hughes was that critical to bring Hughes back. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I know last year it was kind of a big
last year they almost
it was like an under the radar nerdy ass topic.
Well, last year they almost weren't able to bring back Kaimi Fairbairn because they almost ran out of IR returns. They used an IR return on Brandon Hill last year and put him on the practice squad. That was curious. Brandon Hill, 7th round draft pick.
Nick
can't part with one of those.
He was the only
player.
He was the only 7th round draft pick that
he's the only player from last year's class that didn't do anything.
Yeah, that didn't do anything. And Nick Caserio shouted him out and talked about him as like a project type of thing. So we'll see what happens. There's a few. Yeah, Horton too.
No, Horton doesn't count.
Yeah. It was non-injury.
That was non-football injury list.
5. Yeah, Horton was not. Yeah, so there's 5. I think you have 8.
So Harris, Hinish, Nico, Hughes, Okudah, and you got 3 left once they go on IR. So Ward would have been the 6th. Yeah. And I guess with a groin, they probably thought he was coming back at any moment. Yeah. Of course, he missed 4 games, and Yeah,
there's so much, like it's easy for us to like criticize the front office stuff, but man, those guys gotta pay attention to a hell of a lot of crap, man. Like Nick has earned. I think we all agree Nick has earned his money. And the bar has just been raised when it comes to expectations.
I will say this, despite the fact that the trade deadline disappointed me and disappointed a lot of people, they are very active on the waiver wire in grabbing players that they feel like can help them, that other teams jettison. Now, it may not be this week or next week. It may be a few weeks down the road, but they got Derek Barnett last year, and down the stretch, he was very useful off of the waiver wire. So perhaps that's a way to add to the team at some point. Not very many, decent players hit the waiver wire, but every now and then someone does.
Yep. We'll be out at practice. We'll also got a little something cooking up for Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Cody. I think we're putting a little something together for the people. Shout out to all the people. Join us. Let them know, Stoots.
This Friday, 4 o'clock is when the show starts. We get there a few minutes before because we want to hang out with you. Big City Wings in Edo. We got a live show, just a little happy hour S&L for you. So Friday, 4 p.m. is when the show starts. We'll do the show, hang out, chat with you, talk Texans, have some brews. You want to eat some wings. Great stuff at Big City Wings. Really appreciate Sam for having us out at Big City Wings. So little happy hour S&L for you. Got the address right there for you. Just type in Big City Wings Edo. You'll find it. So come out, hang out with us, watch the show live. We'll talk Texans. It's going to be a fun one. We've been talking about this, and we've been kind of circling this Friday on the calendar throughout the course of the season. So this Friday, come out, see us. Big City Wings Edo. We'll be there, live show. Come hang out.
There you go. We'll see you out there. We look forward to that. Going to be a fun time. 4 o'clock. S&L. We'll be reacting to the final injury report. We'll be getting ready for the Lions, and it's going to be a fun time. We got you updated today from practice. We'll give you the live practice report. We'll see if Nico Collins is there. If he's not, things get a little bit different round here. For Cody Stoots, I'm Landry Locker. Tune into the locker room tonight at 10:30. Tune into Cody's channel. He's going to have a video reacting to the news. And most importantly, when it comes to this Texan stuff, always remember we're in this together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks, everybody.